Looking for nerdy news? You're in the right place.
Oh, great. This guy's gonna be late again.
This is the Nerdy News Rundown.
I got plenty of time.
On today's show, breaking Star Wars news, Jon Favreau is to do a live-action TV series. Infinity War, EW drops a bunch of new covers and news about our heroes. Star Wars, the secrets to Rey's power revealed. We're going over all of that and your questions.
I'm gonna be late!
I'm your host, Josh Lucas, broadcasting live from Uncanny in the King of Prussia Mall, Philadelphia. Let's get this show started. Oh man, everybody, holy cow, what is up all of you beautiful nerds out there around the world? It's of course Josh. This is the Nerdy News Rundown. Guys, it finally happened. I've been waiting for this kind of a thing to happen ever since we started the show. We're on our 9th episode, and the whole idea is there's always news dropping, right? And so I wanted something to have where news would drop right before the show. We would adjust our stuff, sort of move stuff around, and go into it. And yes, of course, I'm talking about the Jon Favreau news about him writing and producing a live-action Star Wars show. This is Crazy Town, USA. But before we get into that first topic, which isn't even on the docket, we will get into that. But before we do, a couple of different things. Taking care of business. Shout out to Uncanny, of course, for sponsoring the show, being a big part of what I'm doing here. This has been an incredible experience so far. Big things coming next week. I'm going to drop some info for you guys, get some people in here, have some live audience type stuff. We're figuring out the live streaming. But shout out to Uncanny, man. They are a great comic book store and so much more than that. They honestly do a lot of cool things. Go check out Uncanny if you're in the Philadelphia area. 3 awesome locations. Real quick, too, before we get into the topic, and I know it's so hard because I am dying to get into this topic, but for the last time on the show, I want to plug my comic book. That's right. I make comic books. Check this out. This is a Robin Hood, cyberpunk Robin Hood story. That's the cover right there. That's some of the interior art. It's pretty dope. We just launched it for sale digitally. So if you like cool comic books, you like Star Wars, there's a lot of influence from Star Wars because it's like my favorite thing on the planet. So maybe you want to check that out. I think it's pretty cool. So I wanted to drop that little thing, and it'll be the last time I talk about it, I promise. All right, let's get into this topic. Guys, it's not even on the docket, but holy crap. It was just revealed that Jon Favreau is to executively produce and write a live-action Star Wars series, okay? Now, I'm literally reading from StarWars.com right here. I'm going to check this out. Lucasfilm is excited to announce the Emmy-nominated producer and actor Jon Favreau has signed on to executively produce and write a live-action Star Wars series for Disney's new direct-to-consumer platform. That's right, guys. This is going to be on the streaming service that will drop in 2019. Everybody knew this was going to be happening. This was the thing they sort of snuck in to the announcement with Rian Johnson's trilogy before The Last Jedi. They're like, oh, yeah, and we're doing a live-action series, blah, 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 blah. So Favreau is no stranger. It says here, Favreau is no stranger to the Star Wars galaxy, having played roles in both the Clone Wars and Solo: A Star Wars Story. This broke a little bit earlier in the week. He's actually playing, or voicing rather, that 4-armed monkey-looking dude that's in the Solo movie. That's pretty cool. But check this out. This is what Jon said about it in the article. And you can see I'm literally reading this off my phone on the website. He says, if you would have told me 11 years ago that I would be getting to tell stories in the Star Wars universe, I wouldn't have believed you. I can't wait to embark on this exciting adventure. This is what Kathy Kennedy said about it. I couldn't be more excited about Jon coming on board to produce and write for the new direct-to-consumer platform. Jon brings a perfect mix of producing and writing talents combined with a fluency in the Star Wars universe. This series will allow Jon the chance to work with a diverse group of writers and directors and give Lucasfilm the opportunity to build a robust talent base. Now, real quick, I want to address something she said in there. A diverse group of talent. Now, the reason this is important, maybe you guys already know, but I'm going to go into it anyways. When they made the announcement about Dan and Dave doing their films, that statement was absent from it. And one of the things that Disney's been getting a lot of heat from is the fact that there's just a lot of white dudes doing all this stuff, man. You got a lot of white dudes doing it. Now, look, I try to be completely fair about this sort of stuff, and the fact of the matter is there's a large portion of really talented old white dudes that work in Hollywood that have the resources to do exciting things here. But like when the Dan and Dave announcement came out, a lot of people got on them about that. And, you know, there's some other stuff going on there with the way Dan and Dave treat female characters in Game of Thrones. That's a topic for a different day. But it's important that she said that because there is a lot of talent out there that's diverse, and the fact that he's writing and producing leaves room for showrunners, for actors, for directors, for a lot of different people that could be diverse and have a good skill base to allow Jon's vision for this thing to come forward. And so that statement in and of itself shows that Kathy Kennedy is at least aware of what's going on with Lucasfilm. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk about like how dope this is. Jon Favreau, the guy that gave us Iron Man 1. Man, this guy is royalty. This is Disney royalty right here. And Jon is also the guy that fought really, really hard for Robert Downey Jr. to be Iron Man. The studio did not want Robert Downey Jr. to be Iron Man. They originally wanted actually Tom Cruise, which is something we've sort of been talking about recently. By the way, Tom didn't want to really be in the mask, right? He didn't want to have the Iron Man mask. That was a big hang-up for him as an actor. But Jon has done an incredible job. That Iron Man 1 movie, it literally launched the whole MCU. It's such a good movie, infinitely watchable. He's a fantastic dude, super talented, and what he has done in film is just crazy. I mean, look at the Jungle Book live action. That movie's incredible. The effects, it's just mind-blowing what he was able to do there. And you look all the way back to stuff like Swingers and different things that he has been involved in. I mean, I put so much trust into Jon. And by the way, this is something that the community was talking a lot about leading into this. We're like, well, when is Jon Favreau going to be involved with Star Wars? Obviously, he's a part of the Disney family. He has said many times that he is a huge fan of Star Wars. I believe that. I honestly believe that he is. He's in the Solo movie, right? And he was in the Clone Wars. And so it's like, well, it's just a matter of time. But this news, so exciting. Now, we have no idea what this series will be about. And honestly, I'm excited to find more out about it, you know? I mean, you could jump to all sorts of conclusions. I really don't think we're going to be going Old Republic. It's probably going to focus on sort of a ragtag band of people, and probably some Force users in there. But the thing about Jon is that he's so good, and his pedigree is so diverse. You know, so many different kinds of films that you can't really like nail him down. Like when Dan and Dave were announced, a lot of people were like, well, it's Old Republic because of what they've done with Game of Thrones and their skill set. It just seems to be a perfect match. Now, I don't really get anything off the top of my head when it comes to Jon Favreau as far as what would he do well in Star Wars. Man, I really don't know. I mean, I guess the answer is probably anything, and that is why they pegged him to do this. And so that's really the news, guys. There's not too much more to talk about. I'm incredibly excited. I mean, Disney is going after some real talent here, and I love the little, like, you know, seg thing in there, like, hey, man, look, this will give him room to play with a diverse cast. Maybe they're not as tone deaf as we think they are. This is big, big news. I'm super excited, but I want to know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. Please let me know. How pumped are you to see Jon Favreau doing some live action Star Wars? I mean, the streaming service, they're really trying to sell us on this streaming service, but I think beyond that, they are trying to get really great talent involved with these things. I mean, look at this. Dan and Dave, you know, Rian Johnson, depending on how you feel about The Last Jedi, and, you know, you got a Jon Favreau now. I mean, dang, Disney, like, that's crazy. They are going for the heavy hitters, swinging for the fences with their talent. And I can't wait to see some of the people that they bring on for the show. I'm blanking on the lady's name, the showrunner of Jessica Jones, which drops today, International Women's Day. Shout out to all you ladies out there. She's a great talent. She would be awesome to bring in. There's a litany of talented women, talented people of color, just all kinds of talented people that they could get in on this thing. I mean, I'd love to see, like, you know, Ryan Coogler. I kind of feel like he might do some more intimate stuff, you know, but there's so much room here. I'm really excited. Sorry, I'm rambling. but I'm pretty freaking pumped about it. So let's get into our next topic of the day. By the way, guys, it's a Star Wars heavy show today. I mean, you probably already put that together, but yeah, it's really, really Star Wars. I kind of warned everybody earlier in the week. I was like, well, there's so much Star Wars stuff happening with The Last Jedi novelization, with the end of Rebels, and different things like that, that there's going to be a lot of Star Wars content on the channel this week. And so I'm really excited to get into all of it. But this story in particular, talking about Snokey McStokester, this was something that was making the rounds on the internet yesterday in an Entertainment Weekly interview. Actor Andy Serkis was talking about Snoke, and he revealed something very important that a lot of people in the fan base are wondering about. And so I wanted to get into this with you guys, sort of break it down, talk about what it means and what I think's going on here. Andy Serkis confirmed that there is a backstory to Snoke, something very specific that he talked about with JJ and that he talked about with Ryan. He said that this was something that they knew about, but also something that they really wanted to keep a secret. And so he was asked, Andy Serkis literally says, he was asked not to talk about it. And he even addresses the fan. And look, I love Andy Serkis. Awesome dude, great ambassador for all the brands that he represents. Such a talent in Hollywood. I mean, and I think he's a great actor, a great producer, so hopefully a great director. We're going to check out his version of the Jungle Book, which should be coming out, I think, next year, actually. And his motion capture stuff, of course, is legendary, not only with Snoke, which looks really cool, but all the way back for the Lord of the Rings films and everything in between, Caesar, all of that. Incredible dude. So what he said was, he's like, look, guys, I know this can be frustrating for fans, but I am being asked not to say anything in case they want to delve into it later in a movie or in a book or something like that. And so, bottom line, Andy Serkis confirmed a Snoke prequel. And look, I'm just going to say it. I believe that. It's not clickbait. I literally believe that. Now, do we think that's going to be a film? I don't know. Not necessarily. I actually think it'll be a book. I think it's going to be a big book that's super robust, that goes into that time period. And I know a lot of the struggle right now with Lucasfilm, if you're on that side of the fence, if you're frustrated with Lucasfilm, you tend to believe, well, they don't really have anything planned out. I don't think they have anything planned out. What Andy Serkis is saying in this interview is contrary to that. He says, no, they had a plan there, but they decided to shroud him with mystery. And if you look at the pattern with the Emperor, it's the same sort of thing. The Emperor plays his role in the original trilogy. He's shrouded in mystery. There's not a lot known about him. And then they literally do the prequels, which are arguably more about Palpatine than anybody, and they completely fill out that history. Not to mention, I think as we move forward, the time period between the Battle of Endor and The Force Awakens is something that's going to be filled out. That's something that Disney is going to be into filling out, and it's going to give a lot of answers, give us peripheral knowledge about what's going on. And I do think we will see a lot more of Snoke when we start getting more content in that time period. And so I truly believe that not only because the fans really want more Snoke, but because the story requires a more intimate knowledge of what exactly he was and what exactly he was doing around that time period, I think we're going to get it. And so another thing that they mentioned in that interview is that Snoke is at least a couple hundred years old. That's pretty crazy. I mean, that sort of throws out a lot of the theories that people had about Snoke, thinking that he was this person or maybe this person or whatnot. Those are sort of out of the way. I was already on that train, right? I kind of already thought, well, he can't be that so-and-so, he can't be so-and-so. It just doesn't make sense. So that's the news. Andy Serkis confirms a Snoke prequel. It exists in some form right now, probably just notes and storyboards and different things that Lucasfilm has. And I think that, it's funny because two of the big complaints about The Last Jedi are having to do with Luke Skywalker and Snoke. And I think as a writer, I think Ryan has come out and said this. He said this at least about Luke, and I'm going to go ahead and say this has to do with Snoke too, that the trouble with writing a character like that is that they sort of take over the scenes. They take over the scenes, they take over the movie. And so I think Ryan sort of avoided all of that with Snoke in The Last Jedi because it was really hard for him not to take over scenes. And I actually love what happened to Snoke in The Last Jedi because I think it really furthers the Kylo Ren character. It is to serve his arc. And I don't think we're getting more Snoke in episode 9. Maybe some peripheral knowledge, some stuff filled out, but Snoke's not coming back, guys. And he's definitely not like a Force ghost thing or whatever. A lot of people are clinging to that idea. I don't see that happening. Once again, it will infringe on the arc of Kylo Ren and Rey. And I do acknowledge, though, that we need more Snoke. We need to know who this guy is. Come on. How did he just build this massive army? What was he doing in the unknown regions? What exactly is his connection to Palpatine and Vader? These are things that we want to know as Star Wars fans. And the model in Star Wars is to give us a small piece of the tapestry and then fill it out later. And I think that's the model that we're going to go with here. We're going to be getting more Snoke, man. So that's the story about Snoke. I definitely want to know what all of you guys think about Snokey McStokester in the comment section below. What do you think? You think we're getting that prequel? Do you think it's possible we could be getting that in a movie form? Or do you think this is something they'll touch on in maybe a show or a book or some comics? Really interested to hear what everybody has to say about that. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. All right, let's get in to the next topic of the day. This has to do with Warner Brothers and the DC Extended Universe. And essentially here, guys, there's this big story. Sorry, I got the wrong graphic on there. I got all flustered when I heard about Jon Favreau. But essentially, this has to do with Warner Brothers potentially being sold and having all of their rights to their DC characters gone. And so this is something, if you don't know what's going on here, AT&T is essentially in a situation where they're trying to buy Time Warner. Time Warner, the company, which is, of course, the parent company that owns Warner Brothers and DC Films. And so AT&T worked out a deal to literally buy Time Warner. I think it was something like $80 or $90 billion. And when deals like this happen, it has to go through regulations. The government has to make sure that it's not an antitrust thing or like a monopoly situation. And so, apparently, the government is trying to block this deal. They're like, no, this is anti-competition. This is an antitrust violation. This would be a monopoly. And I believe it has more to do with like cable and the cable network and, channels and different things like that than it does with the properties themselves. But we're hearing a lot of different reports from places like Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, Rap especially, about how if this deal does indeed get blocked by the government and AT&T is no longer able to purchase Time Warner, then Time Warner is going to sell off its assets, sell off the comic book things. And look, I know this story's been around for a little while, but I wanted to sort of break it down, go over, give you my thoughts. Because right now, what a lot of people are saying online is like, well, Disney will probably buy them. And look, Disney's got the money. They just literally owned the internet today with all the Avengers Infinity War stuff and the Jon Favreau news. They're killing it. There's no way around it. They're just absolutely killing it. But similar to what happened with the AT&T deal, I personally feel like the government might block that too. They might be like, yo, Disney, slow your roll, unless it's just for the assets. If the company itself, its infrastructure, its cable providing services, different things like that, if that goes somewhere else, if they sort of break it up, then I could see this deal going through. But at the end of the day, it's crazy to contemplate. Could Warner Brothers be sold, and what would that mean for the future of the DCEU? Well, I think there's looming bad news for the DCEU in general, but you could be in a really weird situation where different studios have different rights to characters. This is like what happened with Marvel in the 90s, right? So imagine like, New Line or Paramount or one of these other studios gets Batman and somebody else gets Wonder Woman and all this other stuff. It could be a big, big mess. I wouldn't like to see that. I would actually honestly prefer Disney to buy the DC stuff because Disney has just proven their ability to build the universe, make these great movies, provide great content for both the hardcore audience and the casual fans. And I think that would be really cool. Besides, it also leaves the door open for like the amalgam comic stuff and DC versus Marvel way down the line. And I know, right? Crazy. That's way too nerdy, Josh. I can hear everyone saying it, but I don't know, man. I do not know. I think it might actually happen. And so that's kind of the news out there. I think it's pretty strange. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, look, I love the DC characters. Avi, big fan of Batman, Superman, all of those things. And I don't know, it would be a shame if they had to sell them off, especially to separate studios, perhaps there would be a studio out there that could, bring them on board and sort of right the ship for the films. Because the truth is, on the comic book end, they're actually killing it. They are actually, I think, doing a much better job than Marvel with their comic books currently. Now, that is always in flux. It's always in flux between them, those two big companies, and Marvel is turning the corner, making some new decisions creatively and different things like that. So it's possible that that'll sort of flip. But if you look at it just from a baseline level right now, I think DC Comics is doing a much better job. And so it would be a shame if something were to happen to make that, that progress stop or make what they're doing come to an end because of stupid big corporate businessy things. And so I don't know, man. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying like I hope that the merger goes through, because I mean, I'm not a big fan of, AT&T or Time Warner as big companies. I think they both have done some super shady things. And I don't know if I'm not saying I want the deal to go through, but I would like there to be some stability. Right now, it's just too shaky. The ground is too shaky. We don't know what the hell is happening with these DC films, even without this big news, but with it sort of looming over top of it, man, it just causes a ton of frustration for fans. And yeah, so that's pretty much the story. I wanted to break it down. I want to know what you guys think about this. Have you heard something? Bring it to my attention. Do you want this merger to go through? Do you want a different studio, aka Disney or Paramount or somebody, or Sony, right? One of these studios to buy the rights to the DC characters? What do you, as a fan, want to happen with the DC films? Let me know in the comment section. Very, very interested to hear what everybody has to say about all of that. Okay, now let's get in to the next topic of the day. This is for you, Reylo community. So, look, like I said, it's a Star Wars heavy show, guys. I'm sorry. That's just what's going down. So check this craziness out. This comes out of The Last Jedi novelization, which, by the way, I'm absolutely loving it, but I am not finished with. But there is a passage in there that seemingly explains something that a lot of fans have had a problem with, and that is the Rey character, okay? So I did a video, I think it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago. It was the Rey is not a Mary Sue video. It was a cool video. A lot of people watched it. A lot of people got pissed. A lot of people were hitting me up on there and just freaking out about it. And that's cool. That's totally cool. I was kind of poking the bear a little bit, so I completely understand that. But there were some comments on that video about something that Pablo Hidalgo had said on Twitter regarding the mind probe sequence in The Force Awakens. It's something that had transferred from Kylo Ren to Rey, which gives like a lot of evidence and credence to the abilities and the powers that she has as a Force user. And I'll be honest with you, when I heard everybody saying that on my video, I was like, well, Pablo says a lot of things. He can be kind of mysterious, and from a certain point of view, he can say things. And I didn't take it too seriously, right? And then I'm reading The Last Jedi novelization yesterday during the snowstorm, and wow, there is a sequence that explicitly says that. And so that's what this topic is. This is what I want to go into. Rey, when she's on Ahch-To, is talking about when she pushed into the mind of Kylo Ren. Apparently, during that exchange, when he pushed into her mind, and then she pushed back and got back into his mind, which I think was really done kind of instinctually, what happened was she describes it as like her getting all of his memories. She describes it as though there were these thousands of doors inside her mind that were all of the sudden opened. Like that, the mind probe sequence just opens all of these doors inside her. And then she literally says it was almost as though his training had become her training, right? This is a pretty significant thing, and I want to break it down. I want to go into it. So the Reylo connection, the connection between Kylo Ren and Rey, is obviously a huge part of this new saga. And look, I want to just say to everybody that commented on that last video, like, you were absolutely correct. I didn't realize that that was such a significant thing. But what they are implying is that during this connection between, what you have to think of this is, guys, is that Rey is this thing that the Force sort of creates. She's a conduit for the light side. She is a thing that is being propped up in order to create balance, because, and this is another thing that they go into a lot during the Last Jedi book, the dark side in Kylo Ren is real. Like, real. Now, there's some light side stuff in there too, which is very cool. They go into that a little bit. But man, like the way they talk about his anger and just the darkness that's within him and just how dark he is, it is mind blowing how dark side this guy is. And so in order to balance itself out, the Force chooses a conduit in Rey and sort of forces in the light side power for her in this equation. And then when they have that moment of the mind probe thing, he's like, inside there messing with her mind and stuff, and she just gets frustrated and pushes back. And it's really like this yin yang sort of thing. They dive into each other's brains, and like she gains access to a lot of the training from Luke that he gave Kylo Ren. And so a lot of her abilities, her power, her prowess is literally like Kylo Ren's power, ability, and prowess. It literally like they share it. And this is something interesting because this Force connection has been something that fans have been talking a lot about. And there was Revan and Bastila, okay? They are an example of like a Legends versions of Kylo and Rey. And something that happens with that Force connection, this is a connection that all Padawans have with their masters, is that they can literally have some of each other's thoughts, right? And so this connection taken to an intimate level, which is kind of what is happening in The Last Jedi and will happen in the future of this current saga, when you take away the restrictions that the Jedi Code had normally placed on that sort of a connection, it gets really, really intimate. So I think what's happening here is that Rey is getting some of the power and the abilities from Kylo. It's almost like a Harry Potter type thing, right? At the beginning of Harry Potter, arguably Harry is gifted with a lot of things because of becoming sort of like a Horcrux for Voldemort. Like that sort of thing just happens and their powers sort of blend and they become connected in a very meaningful way moving forward. And that same thing happened to Rey and Kylo. And so you could make the argument that Reylo connection, that connection that they have and the feelings that they have for each other, beyond just what the Force sort of set in motion, but also what is happening to them as characters, is literally the source of Rey's power. And I remember back in the day, after The Force Awakens, a lot of theory crafters were talking about how it's possible that Kylo unlocked things within Rey. Now, at the time, we thought there was a Revan thing going on where she had been trained already. She had all this training and stuff previously, and that there was a mind block or a mind wipe put into her by maybe Luke, maybe someone else. And that when Kylo was searching her mind, he removed that lock, removed that barrier, and allowed her to fully access the training that she already had. What this is, what is the actual explanation is not that far away from the previous explanation. It is essentially her being matrixed, and she just downloads all this training and all of these feelings of the Force and different things like that. And she can't always tap into it, right? There's parts of her journey on Octu where it's not happening for her. She can't actually fully access the Force. But then when she opens herself up to it, reaches out with her feelings and stuff, it's really crazy powerful what is happening to her. And so I just wanted to sort of talk about this. I know a lot of the Star Wars fans will be very interested to know about this because I sort of touched on it before. I wanted to touch on it one more time. But yeah, so that's basically it. I'm going to move on because this show is going to be longer than usual today. But I would definitely want to know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. What do you think? Have you heard about this? Are you reading the novelization? And do you agree that this is actually a pretty stinking good explanation for the powers that Rey has? Or do you somehow still think that this is just ridiculous, that she's being propped up, and that no explanation will do? She's a Mary Sue. Yada, yada, yada. Please, either way, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. All right, let's talk some Avengers Infinity War. Now, right before I was making the show notes for today's show, it was dropped that Entertainment Weekly did 15 different dope-ass covers for Avengers Infinity War, and they also break down all sorts of details in their articles with regards to this coming amazing movie. Okay, so I wanted to touch base on this, just talk about some of the things that's going on here. First of all, these covers look flat out amazing, and there'll probably be a lot of information coming out as people dive into these articles and different things like that. But the two things that pop off to me, because they're things we've sort of been talking about the show recently, number one, It is confirmed that the armor that Tony Stark is wearing is the bleeding edge armor. It is also confirmed that it comes out of the chest cavity in the arc reactor. That's where he houses all the nano machines that basically become the armor. And look, if you're a fan of comics, it's so crazy that we're getting the bleeding edge. It looks gorgeous, but it also says a couple of things. I think that a lot of people were thinking, okay, well, he's got the soul stone in that cavity, right, in the arc reactor. I never bought into that. I always thought that was a little bit crazy, which we touched on, I think, on Monday's show, because that was sort of making the rounds then. But, I think that reactor is just where he puts the nano machine. So it sort of eliminates the possibility of that soul stone being in there. And that's pretty crazy. Also, if you look at that cover image, that cannon that he has, that seems to just be an extension that goes around his hand. And so that big rumor that Tony Stark had lost a hand or lost an arm in the movie, it doesn't really appear that that is going to be the case. He's just able to build and have anything that he needs. I mean, you look at the wings behind him on the suit, which is reminiscent of that suit he had when he was with the Guardians of the Galaxy. Basically, the bleeding edge stuff can formulate and become any type of armor that it needs to be. He could just become the Hulkbuster if he needed to, or if he needed a separate kind of weapon or a different kind of thing, it can literally become anything that it needs to. It's connected right into his brain, which is crazy town. But I'm very excited about that. That's gonna be dope. I mean, I gotta get the figures. They have those Infinity War figurines. I got to get my hands on all of those because the hype is absolutely real when it comes to Infinity War. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about briefly was the White Wolf, a.k.a. Bucky Barnes. It was confirmed that he's no longer going to go by Winter Soldier and that he is indeed going to be called the White Wolf in the movie. And depending on what kind of a time jump we get or what exactly is going on here, I think he's going to be the White Wolf, which we talked about before. It was a fan question that came in a couple shows ago. And essentially, I think he's going to be in charge of security for Wakanda, or at least involved in security in Wakanda. We also got to confirm that arm is going to be vibranium. So Bucky's going to be the White Wolf now, which is pretty crazy. I'm wondering if he's going to get any kind of a costume. That would be pretty interesting. Probably not, though. He'll probably just rock the Winter Soldier look, but no longer be called the Winter Soldier. And so that's sort of the news, man. It's just so crazy what is happening with this movie. Just weeks away, Infinity War. By the way, if you're in the area, we are actually going to be doing a trivia contest here at the King of Prussia shop of Uncanny with massive prizes. Massive prizes. So if you get a team together, if you got some fans, some Marvel fans, some big nerds, and you get a team together and you want to come in and compete, it will cost your team an entry fee. But we're going to have prizes, and I can't talk too much about it right now yet because we're still formulating what the prize pool is going to be. But movie tickets, a dinner, your whole night of Infinity War will be set up for you. It's going to be pretty cool. So I just wanted to drop that. But let me know in the comments, what do you guys think about these crazy EW covers and all the news coming out from these Entertainment Weekly articles with regards to Infinity War? Very interested to hear what everybody has to say about all of that. So let's get into some fan questions. I just picked one today from Laura LaPlante. I'm going to put her question up there on the screen. It says, now that the expanded and Junior The Last Jedi novels are released, there's been a lot of talk about how they are different. I'm going Reylo here when Ben Kylo encounters Rey in the escape pod. Each book describes that in a very different way. I'm just curious as to your thoughts on the difference in characters, especially Kylo Ben, and how they're being portrayed. And she says that the show's great, which is awesome. Thank you, Laura, so much for the support. Now, as far as getting into your question itself, I think it's just a writing thing, right? I think that especially when you consider the audiences, if you have a junior book or a book sort of targeted towards young people, you're gonna not be as crazy dark as you would if it was for adults. And so I think that more or less what's going on. And it's one of those things where it's like, from a certain point of view, they're both correct, right? And look, there are those goofy little cartoon books that Star Wars puts out that are like Vader puts his kids to bed and different things like that. And am I upset about the depiction of Vader in those books compared to what he actually is? No, not at all. And I think there's room for that sort of stuff in Star Wars. But, with regards to the question of canon, because now it's all supposed to be canon. I just think that they're sort of toning it down for the younger audiences. I mean, I think that that's just in general what it is. And also, like, even if you read the Last Jedi novelization, like, there are parts of it that sort of conflict with what you saw on screen. And I don't think it's ever going to be perfect. And we sort of have to give them a little bit of leeway here. But, like, for instance, in the novelization, when Rey cuts that rock in half, it is because Luke startles her and she's like training. And so she like sort of messes up and cuts that rock in half. And in the film, they chose to sort of make her just misjudge it as she's training and go right through. Now, both of those are totally fine, but you could make a lot of distinctions about what those different depictions of that scene and that act mean. And I just think in general, you're never going to have it fully perfect. And so when it comes to Ben, I would imagine in the junior novel that it's a little bit more romantic. It's a little bit more of his softer side and not talking about like the incredible darkness and the anger and stuff that's welling up inside him. But I would probably, and obviously I haven't read the junior novel, but I would say that the themes are still there, right? So him struggling, him having the dark side, him essentially being a bad guy, that is still there. I think that they're probably just toning it down a bit for the kiddies, right? You don't want to freak them out too much. At the end of the day, like all of Star Wars is really for kids. It's for the kids inside us at the end of the day. And so, you know, even stuff that could be really, really dark, I think is always sort of toned down a bit. But especially with regards to this movie, I mean, look, it is what it is. And I think that, yeah, that's my answer. And I could be wrong, but that's sort of what I'm thinking. You know what I mean? And I don't think there's a big canon difference there. But Laura, thank you so much for the question. Guys, if you have questions you want me to go over on tomorrow's show or on next week's show, drop them in the comment section below. Always willing to talk about what you guys want to talk about. You know, it was a Star Wars heavy show today. There's a lot of Star Wars stuff that happened. That Jon Favreau news is crazy. I really want to know what you think about that and more in the comment section below. Guys, as I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I will see you tomorrow.